Let's invite Aditya Sood from InCred PMS on the show now to discuss some market ideas. Aditya, this has truly become a a bottom-up kind of market. It's always been that, but I think now more than ever, as over the last few months, we've seen the index stall, we've seen volatility pick up, and the focus on quality, whether it's large cap or small cap, has become paramount. So in the last 1 month, how have you approached the market? What are the changes that you've made to your portfolio?
Sure. So, as a starting point, I think so. Correction was widely expected by bull markets. Corrections are very treacherous. They are sharp. Obviously, it gives us time to, position ourselves well for our investors. Obviously, so there is a two-pronged strategy that we have followed. One is that we have resorted to, buying more of the stocks that we really have conviction. And what we saw in this correction period over the last 2-3 months has been that a lot of small mid caps corrected by 25-30% from the peaks that they made 3 months back. So we resorted to some sort of sizing wherein we added to Neural Labs, Tejas Network, Intellect Design Arena, and these are long-term structural stories that we have invested into. The second element of our strategy has to do with buying into stocks wherein there have been near-term earnings headwind, and last 4 to 6 quarters, obviously earnings have disappointed, and this includes building material names like Finolex Cable or HIL to that matter. So what we firmly believe is that some stocks can correct by 30-50% in a bull market, and one needs to capitalize and position ourselves, for the next leg of growth in these companies. So this is a two-pronged strategy that we are focusing on. Within this, we have a very large overweight stance on consumption. So we have added a name known as Arvind Fashion, essentially, and that is obviously catering to the premium and the mid-market end of the consumption.
So Finolex Cables and HIL, you believe these are some of the stocks that you like, right? Where you believe the contraction, the pressures are behind the company.
Yeah, that's correct. If you look at Finolex Cable as a case in point, we are extremely positive on the prospects of BharatNet, and that is why we have a holding in Tejas as well. I think so. If you look at the optical fiber cable side of the business, there are large tenders which are due on the BharatNet side. Secondly, what we have witnessed is that Finolex continues to execute well, and obviously we had a 3-5 year underperformance for the stock, and subsequently the stock has really done reasonably well. So we do believe that on the building material space, there are certain plays, particularly in cable and wire. The company has got decent cash on the balance sheet, and it has got a holding in Finolex Industries as well.
Okay, so Finolex is a play on the whole building material space, and Tejas, as you mentioned, it's the whole BharatNet prospects and optic fiber. That's sort of the play over there. Got it. Aditya, I remember, when we spoke a couple of months back, I think at the start of the year, at that point, two-wheelers was a space that you really liked. Now, I don't know if you're changing positions now because, they've been the best performing stocks as well. And now the March month was a little lackluster for most of the two-wheeler majors. But what's the sense now? Have stocks already priced in the best possible scenario?
So we have been fairly constructive on the two-wheeler space for last year and a half, actually, and that includes both OE as well as the auto-anch two-wheeler. I think so. We have just seen, two-wheeler sales picking up, and this has got to do with our more or less overweight stance on rural consumption. I think so. One of the things which has not been highlighted by most people is that gold has done well as an asset class. And what we expect going forward, obviously, rural has a very large exposure in terms of balance sheet repair through gold. We have seen 2 years back to back wherein gold returns have been in double-digit sort of a number. The second element of rural growth balance sheet repair is obviously the real estate prices. We are seeing certain categories wherein, interestingly, the consumption levels, and this is being highlighted by the recent AC Nielsen data which came through in terms of volume growth of staples. So we have been fairly constructive on the low unit consumption thesis side. We believe that there is significant room for same store growth for companies like V-Mart, which recently reported a very encouraging number, and Dabur obviously has been reporting a decent number in terms of, these are two companies which have had more exposure towards tier 2 and tier 3, and that is why I'm highlighting. So clearly, I think so volume growth is going to be the key for most of these categories, and we will have a similar sort of stance, flowing through. So this thesis flows from two-wheeler, getting spilled over to low unit consumption. So we are fairly constructive on both the spaces.
That's pretty interesting. Just take that point forward. So the play here is rural recovery, and that should, you're saying, spill over from two-wheelers into other mass consumption as well, because that's the laggard pocket of the market, right? So any specific calls on FMCG? Are you looking to add any on your portfolio? Because that's been the most the biggest underperforming part of the market for the last year and a half.
Yeah, so obviously, one of the ways is obviously to play it through building material. If somebody is not playing it through a real estate theme. The second theme is obviously staples. I think so valuations are much more constructive here. So Dabur and HUL is something that we have in the portfolios, but all the categories on the consumer durable side as well, which are exposed to low unit consumption. Recently we added into Orient Electric, which is obviously has a market leadership position in terms of fans. So we believe that there are very interesting ways to play the rural theme, and obviously there is an element of mean reversion. We do believe that when we are buying into these sort of companies, earnings growth. Secondly, we also do believe that over a period of time, the multiples will expand, and these are the pockets, interestingly, which have also underperformed over the last 3 to 4 years.
Just to get back to that point about rural, when you look at the Hero MotoCorp sales numbers for the month of March, they were still very disappointing. Sales were down 5 to 6%. So that's not tying in with the expected pickup in rural spending and plus the pre-election kind of, spending that comes through. So how do you marry that data point that's come through from Hero MotoCorp?
So the first point here is that, it is not really realistic to look at, 1 month's number and make a logical conclusion out of it. So for example, if I have to draw a parallel, you look at what Maruti is reporting, essentially. So all the growth was coming from the premium end. Now what we are seeing is that, volumes for a company like Maruti have also started to pick up, particularly at the lower end in terms of pricing points. So what we essentially are seeing is that, we are at a very, very early stage, and it is not, I mean to say it is very logical to expect rural to outperform in an election year. One has to bear that as well in mind.
Okay. All right, Aditya, good speaking with you today. Thanks very much for all the perspective and, giving us the thought process behind a lot of your holdings and the pockets of the market that you like. So that is InCred PMS and how they're positioned on the market. We do need to take a break. On the other side,